You are listening to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Armand Crowder. I put my middle name in there this time because it's nice and it doesn't get to poke its head out every now and then. Yes, and with me, as usual, are John G. Goodman and Donovan Fowler. How you guys doing?
Hello.
It's a great pleasure.
Great pleasure.
Once again.
Yeah.
You just put your middle name in there because you want to appeal to all the French people out there. You want
to appeal
to
to the French crowd,
expand our French audience.
The older generation that had names like Armand.
Armand.
I should have just been called Armand. That's a much cooler name than Jordan. Jordan is like the millennial name that everybody has.
I feel like that's the name of somebody in Count of Monte Cristo.
So, what do you guys got there today? I know Donovan's doing his Catholic thing.
My papist my papist thing.
Yeah,
I'm doing Kona coffee right now.
Yeah,
it's it's a little late in the day, but when you do what I do, coffee is never. There's no better time for coffee than the present.
How about you, John? What do you got there?
Coors Light.
No! No!
How do they spell it? L-I-T-E or?
How do they get away with spelling light that way?
I think it's like I think they were like, hey, we want to make it different, so we're gonna pretend that we're illiterate.
They all followed suit though, right? Because light always spelled that way. They did spell it right on that.
They did spell it right.
It's only Miller. Miller spells it L-I-T-E.
Well, nobody drinks Miller.
Yeah, right.
We just alienated a good portion of our audience. I'm drinking some Monkey Shoulder Scotch, which I enjoy it. Shout out to I guess Nathan Carter. I had it at a dinner party once, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So,
what kind of Scotch is it? Like, does it come? Where does it come from? Is it?
I don't know Scotches.
I guess Scotch would come from Scotland.
I don't know Scotches. I'm revealing that I don't know anything about it.
Scotchland.
It's just good. And I'm smoking my little pocket Baracchini pipe, and in it,
what's in that pipe?
Got some vanilla custard something in rather.
For those of you who can't see, which is everybody but us, Jordan's pipe is like the size. It's like an elf pipe, and I don't mean like Lord of the Rings elf pipe. I mean like Santa's workshop elf pipe. It's very tiny and looks even tinier in his.
I'm not going to lie.
In his hands.
It looked bigger when I ordered it online. And then when I got it, I was like, this looks like a hash pipe.
Only to the uninitiated.
But it doesn't. It's. I know it's not supposed to be, but that's why it's supposed to be like a pocket. You know, you take it, you keep it in your pocket, maybe in your suit pocket, which we'll talk.
A little too stubby for my liking.
That's what she said. Speaking of pockets, speaking of pockets, we're gonna have a Tanner Guzy on later today, and maybe he could tell us what kind of pockets are appropriate to have on your clothes and what kinds aren't. He is a style blogger for masculine-style.com, and he actually has some really good insight and tips for men that are looking to upgrade their style and be a little more confident in life.
The answer is pockets. Just put pockets all over whatever you're wearing.
Pockets everywhere.
Yeah, just pockets everywhere.
So what has been going on in your weeks, John? Anything happen interesting to you up there in that land of polar bears and flying hockey pucks?
I was at the pharmacy this morning, and it's in a strip mall. And as I'm leaving, about 50 yards down the road, I see, this homeless fellow going through a garbage can. And I thought, I feel like it's a good day to help somebody.
Okay.
I'll offer to take him across the street for a sandwich or something. So as I'm walking towards him, I'm building up my courage because they're scary people. And he's going through the trash, and I notice he's throwing all the trash on the ground. So I said, well, screw this. I'm not buying him a sandwich. He's polluting. Then I walked right by him, and he talked to me, but I ignored him.
Oh. Well, so you didn't end up getting him a sandwich?
No, I was put off by the
Litter bug.
The litter bug.
Yeah. Jeez. I've always said just because somebody's homeless doesn't mean they're a saint, I feel
sometimes they can be jackasses.
It's true. It's true. There's this weird millennial, like our generation obsession with like, it's almost like if you're really, really poor, you must be a good person.
Yeah.
But it's not always true. I mean, speaking from personal experience. But no.
Sometimes you're just really bad at banking.
Yeah. I mean, global warming, let's just admit it's all about homeless people. It's that they're the cause
because
of
they're
it.
crapping outside and it's creating greenhouse gases.
Jenkum. We're going full circle with that.
Yeah. Speaking of homeless people, somebody stole my patio umbrella. And by stole, I mean the wind took it away today, and I was really pissed.
It's been a windy day here in LA.
Yeah, I was looking down the this little kind of drainage ditch area where I live. It kind of looks like where where the greasers in the movie Grease, they race their cars at the end of the movie. That's what it looks like. It's like
it's basically the LA River. I mean, it's like that's what the LA River looks like now. They're trying to make it look better by replanting, but it's all concrete.
I think it went down that way, but I don't know. So if you happen to live in the area and you see a patio umbrella, just give me a call.
Or a dirty homeless person carrying a patio umbrella.
Man-81 Scoff with 2 Fs, and hopefully I can get that thing back because I'm out $30.
It was a nice umbrella. I mean, we've smoked and grilled and drank many a thing under that umbrella. Yeah, but you know what? Actually, the first thing that I thought was, well, usually we're doing that at night. I was like, why did we have the umbrella if we're usually out here at night? That was the first thing that came to mind. Not to say I don't miss it.
It does keep the leaves off the table, and it has lights on there so we can see at night.
That is also true. And it had a speaker on, too.
I know. It's such a pain in the butt that's gone. I posted on Nextdoor about it. I was like, hey, if anyone's seen my patio umbrella, I'd really like to have it back.
Well,
good luck with that.
Let's hope it happens.
What about you, Donovan? What's interesting in your week?
I mean, basically, I was perusing the movie news as I do because I'm a huge film buff, and I forgot about this movie because it seems to like be a movie that everybody was talking about, and just over time, like it takes forever to come out, and it's this movie Lost City of Z. Which everything seems to have a Z in the title. Like,
does that mean it's a zombie movie? Is that
No. That's what you think. Like there's so many Z movies. There's World War Z. There's Z.
That's a zombie movie, right?
That's a zombie movie.
Okay.
Z, which is about Zelda Fitzgerald. That's like an Amazon series, which actually is a connection to this because this was produced by Amazon as well.
Yeah.
But I
thought you meant this because Rick Schick worked on that show and he was on our podcast.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he mentioned that. Yeah. But anyways, this is based on a book, which is based on the adventures of this explorer named Percival Harrison Fawcett. I don't know how many times he got beaten up in boarding school for that name.
Poor Percy.
Poor Percy. Yeah,
Percy.
that was actually that's the abbreviated name, Percy. But anyway, so he had this whole theory that he had found El Dorado out in the middle of the Amazon, and he called it Z. He called this city just Z. And he was
not a very inventive guy, is he?
Well, he was probably just tired. He's
like, this is my last city.
To be fair, he had worked for the British Secret Service in North Africa and had gone through a world war at this point. So I think he's entitled to call it whatever he wants. But that being said, the guy was interesting. I mean, people thought he was kind of crazy, but he had been out in the world of archaeology for a little while. People like Indiana Jones are kind of based off guys like this. It was kind of that 1920s era of archaeology and exploration. But he's famous because he got lost out in the wilderness and never came back. I mean, nobody ever saw him again.
So he's like the Amelia Earhart of the jungle.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like that. He and his son and another guy.
He was eaten by an anaconda.
That it's entirely possible. They don't know. I mean, there are many theories as to what happened to him. He actually said, if we get lost, don't send anybody after us. But human mercy and sympathy being what it is, they sent many people after him, and 100 guys died trying to find him. So,
Wait,
anyways,
were they trying to find him, or were they trying to find this lost city?
that might. Well, that's a good question.
Yeah. We'll find him.
We're gonna go look for Percy. We're gonna try to find. Oh, look at the gold.
Just in case we find a lost city of gold, But anyways, there are many rumors as to what actually happened to him. There's one that he lost his mind and became the chief of a cannibal tribe. There's another that he died in natural causes. There's this one guy who says that he ran into a group of natives out there who are very secluded, and some had never seen a European. And he said that they admitted to killing them. That basically there was like the protocol in the jungle was basically you give gifts if you want to travel through the territory. And apparently their raft collapsed at one point. They lost half the gifts, and then they got to the next tribe and they were like, no gifts. We're going to kill you. And
it's like a bad girlfriend.
I know. Yeah. Right.
Look, honey, I just didn't have any money, but I
forgot it was Valentine's Day.
I could spend time with you.
Nope. We're gonna kill you and dump your bodies in the river.
So the movie's entirely conjecture.
Well, it's based off just several accounts, and kind of it is like conjecture of what might have happened. It's kind of it's half of it is real life testimony, and then half of it is probably what would have happened. But that being said, it comes out April 14th, 2017, which is a couple weeks from now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just looks interesting. Check out the trailer. Check out the poster. The cinematography actually looks really good. The director is like, he seems to like Charlie Hunnam's in it. Robert Pattinson's in it. And actors seem to like to work with this director because I seem to see consistent, like Mark Wahlberg has worked with him several times, Joaquin Phoenix. So it actually could be a cool, I mean, you're guaranteed a lot of, khaki, leather, and jungle. So, very manly, very manly.
Very Tarzan.
I don't know.
Scofflaw-esque.
That didn't sound very manly. You talking about you wanting to go see a movie for the costume design, but
hey, you got to wear something in the jungle. We got to be civilized,
we'll have to look out for that. Maybe we'll do a review. And actually, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe we could go see some of these movies and review them after the fact, and that could be like an extra perk for the Patreon page.
I'd like that.
If you guys
Patreon.
want to support the show, we're starting a Patreon here this month. And let us know what sort of perks you'd like to get if you were to support us on Patreon. That could be one of them.
Yeah. We will never lead you astray in terms of movies. We'll always tell you whether it's good or bad, and we'll save you money.
And we might have a VHS giveaway.
VHS giveaway.
Jeez, that would have been
we could have giveaways
Take
for
them,
a year
please.
if we go to a Goodwill.
That would have been in the twilight days of VHS, right? That would have been one of the last movies.
Well, if you're listening to us right now, you probably have found us on one of the listening mechanisms, apps, whatever you call them out there. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, and many other podcatchers. But if you want to interact with the show, if you want to send us questions, if you want to have some of your feedback read on the air, which we do sometimes, actually, that's what this next segment is going to be. Let's just go to the next segment.
Listener mail.
Today we have listener feedback from Michael Morrison on Twitter, and he says, "Stupid question." There's no such thing as a stupid question, Michael Morrison. You don't have to qualify. All questions are good.
Seems very politically correct, but I'll allow it.
He said, "On the Art of Manliness, you played a character using a safety razor. Do you use one personally and have any tips?" And he's referring to the character of Bill on the Art of Manliness. Which, and I do use a safety razor actually. And if you watch that video in which I use a safety razor, there are some decent tips in it. But I don't know if you guys use safety razors. I've been using one for about, since 2010. So about I don't know, was that 6 years now?
I've been using one since, like, for the last 5 years or so. I picked up on it. I think your video may have actually led me onto it.
Really?
But it was also just like I remember seeing them in movies, like Sean Connery and Bond uses a safety razor, and I just remember looking at it and being like, how does one shave with that?
Yeah.
Like, it seems very strange.
Well,
Didn't really know what it was about.
It looks like it's very strange and like archaic when you look at it. Like, oh, why would I touch my face with that thing? But honestly, once you use it, you end up getting a better shave than you've ever had. At least that was my experience. I've got curly hair and I've got sensitive skin and coarse hair. So that combination just doesn't work well for like the standard kind of razors you get out of a cartridge at stores.
I started with the Mach 3, worked my way up to the Mach 4. I found it was too much Mach.
Too much Mach.
Too much Mach.
Did you ever jump up to the Fusion? Have you ever gone that
no,
far?
I don't have the guts for that.
I did the Fusion. I did the Fusion with the vibrating handle.
Oh, gosh.
And it was the stupidest thing ever.
The truth is, now, I don't want to get conspiracy theorist about this, but the reason why we have cartridge razors is because it was another way to make money.
I could see that.
Gillette's patent
Wait, is this
on
going
the
to be like
safety
Adam
razor
ruins everything?
Yeah, Adam ruins everything. Well, I think Gillette's patent was going to run out on the safety razor replacement blades, and anyone could produce it. Or maybe it was something like everybody was producing the blades.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And they're like, we got to come up with some new technology that people want. And they created cartridge razors, which are made of inferior quality, and they do a number on your skin. They're not good for your skin. You get ingrown hairs and all that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like that was kind of my thing was that I got fed up with cartridge razors because I don't shave every day.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of young men probably don't shave every day these days. And the problem is that I would shave after like having maybe 3 or 4 days of stubble on, and then it would get caught up in the cartridge razor part, like the 3 blades or whatever, and it would get stuck in there, and you'd have to take like a toothpick or something and get it out, and it would dent the blades and cause you to get cut. So I switched over to the safety razor because I thought, well, this looks like it's easier to clean at least. And it was. And then on top of that, it does give you to me, it gives me a much better shave. Yeah. And the blades are cheaper. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's a good piece of hardware.
Well, you look at, like, if you go to a Target or something and you're buying razor replacements for a Fusion, it's like $20 for like what, 4 blades?
My roommate had an interview and he had to buy blades, and he couldn't believe it. It was like $20 for like
ridiculous.
4.
Yeah, and so I buy blades every maybe 2 or 3 years because I shave maybe twice a week. Just because I don't need to go into
bastard.
And I probably should shave more, but just because I like to avoid the irritation if I can. I feel like that's been a good balance. But I'll buy a pack of 100 blades, and it'll cost me like $12.
Yeah,
and it'll last me like 3 years. So you do the math, like. I mean, the razor, like if you buy the razor handle at first, it might cost you $30 to $40. I mean, you can get an Edwin Jagger safety razor for $30.
You can even find them used in thrift stores.
Yeah.
I mean, they're that good that they last that long. And I mean, a used safety razor is stainless steel, so there's no sense of like, oh, like this is dirty or like you don't get a sense that
you
it's
can
used.
restore them up pretty well too if you want to make them like new. Actually, I was at the Big Shave West last year, and I have an old Gillette from the 60s, this adjustable razor, and the guys over at Razor Emporium took it and they totally just revamped it for me. And it's one of the best razors I have. Like, it's just like, because you could adjust it and everything, and it's the thing is like 50 years old. It's insane, but they never break down. But yeah, I would recommend just playing around with the angle on it. Don't give up after the first try if you do get one, because the first time I did it, I had a bloody mess all over my face. I was trying to use it like a cartridge razor.
What you want to do is you want to let the weight. It's a heavy thing, so you want to almost let the weight of it guide the shave, which sounds like a Jedi like mind trick, but that's the way it is.
Let the weight guide the blade, Daniel son.
The weight will guide you. But yeah.
How many Mach is safety?
It's enough Mach.
It's enough Mach. It's all the Mach you need.
It's all the Don't worry about the mock, guys. Don't worry about the mock.
Well, thank you, Michael Morrison, for that question. And let us know if you try it. We'll put some links in the show notes. I'll link to some good kind of starter safety razors that work great, and some blades and all the stuff you would need. Just click the link in the show notes, which is at gentlemanscofflaw.com. And that has been
Listener mail.
All right, I'm really excited for this next guest. I've been following him on YouTube for a while. He's, I guess, what you would call a style blogger. I guess he could clean that. He could clear that up for us. His name is Tanner Guzy, and he has a website called masculinestyle.com. Tanner, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, I came across your YouTube channel. It's funny because our name is Gentleman Scofflaw. It's kind of an ironic name. Just kind of, we're joking around with it and everything. But I came across one of your videos a while ago called "Why I Am Not a Gentleman," and I remember like, oh, I'm intrigued by that. I wonder what he's going to say. And yeah, you had a really intriguing video talking about, the history of what a gentleman is and why you weren't one. I wondered if you could cover some of that with us today. Why are you not a gentleman?
It's funny because that video gives me a lot of hate, and I guess in a way that's by design, but I feel like the term gentleman has gone through so many iterations, and the way that it's currently defined right now is a way for weak-minded doormat men to be able to say that their niceness and their subservience is somehow masculine.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be that it was a way for powerful men who were capable of doing violence or building the world in their own image or affecting change or, shaping society. Men who were capable of doing that and they had power would temper their power, and then they would use it for good, or they would temper it to allow other people to flourish and do other things. And now it's just a way for weak-willed, weak-abled men to just say, well, no, I'm a gentleman. And it's like, no, you're not, because there's no virtue in not doing something if you're incapable of doing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you think like now, I think definitely in kind of modern culture, when you hear the word gentleman, you think of somebody that's kind of, that's kind of shy and subservient and, that doesn't want to kind of be necessarily manly in, whatever that means. But yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. And that word has definitely changed over time. And then it led me to another video that you had talking about what you referred to as gentleman cosplay. And it's funny because I had always thought this, but I had never found anybody that had kind of like pinpointed it and gave it a name. But I'll be searching around, just browsing around on Instagram or something, and I'll see these guys that are just, they think they're dressed to the nines, but they look like cartoon characters. I mean, I think that there's a way to be stylish and masculine, but not have, dare I say, the foppishness of some of these, of what people think is like, no, this is how a gentleman should dress. But you look like a clown, I think. I don't know. That's just what I think.
Absolutely. Well, and the problem with it is that it really is, it's cosplay. It's hearkening back to a specific time in which wearing that clothing would have actually been appropriate, but somehow thinking that doing it now constitutes dressing better or being a better man or being a better, air quotes, gentleman, when really it's like saying, well, I'm going to put on greaves and a toga and somehow that's going to make me a gladiator. Like, no. I mean, obviously it's comical when we go to that extreme.
Yeah.
But for some reason, if we take it to the 50s or the 40s or the 30s and we think that, I never walk out of the house without a hat on, that somehow that makes you a better man. And society evolves and people's expectations change. And if you're not able to at least give a nod to that, it shows a complete lack of social fluency. And rather than indicating that you're kind of above the fray, you just look like an idiot.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean, I get a lot of hate for that one too, but really the guys who they're all kitted out and stuff from the 30s or the 40s, and it's perfectly vintage, and they're following all those old traditional rules, thinking that somehow that's making them better. it's not, and they just look like they're socially incapable of understanding the world around them.
Yeah.
Well, and I see a lot of guys like in LA, especially. The trend is even to go back to the 70s. That's sort of the hipster thing now, and they go full on into it. It's like I once saw a guy in a cafe. He looked like he had stepped out of a time machine, but then naturally takes out his iPhone 7 and starts scrolling through, stuff. But it's funny how it's kind of, it's also, I find it also is kind of a poor substitute maybe for character. You think that, you think that because the way you dress defines you, or the decade that you are obsessed with defines you.
Well, I think that you bring up a good point in some of the videos you have on YouTube, where you talk about that dress isn't necessarily something that defines you, but it affects the way people see you, and it's important. Do you expand upon that? Talk about why you think dress is important, and what does it say about a man?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that I found is the best way to explain all this is that clothing it's communication. And I think a lot of times people say, well, I don't care what other people think of me. I don't care what I dress like, or I don't care what I look like, especially a lot of modern men. You've got the one extreme of the gentleman cosplayers, and then the other where it's the guy who's still wearing the same Captain America t-shirt, cargo shorts, and combat boots, and he thinks that somehow is, that's masculinity there, not caring what he looks like. And that's the equivalent of saying, me speak good English, no need conjugation, people understand words say. It's like, well, yeah, but you communicate certain things by your fluency, by your choice of language, by your dialects, by your slang, by all these other variables. And that's the exact same thing with your clothing. You can whine about the fact that people are going to judge you or associate what kind of person you are or the tribe that you belong to or any of these other variables. But the reality is that clothing is communication, and a major component of communication is what's being interpreted by the person who's receiving it. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we are accurately portraying things so that the people who receive it can get as accurate of a picture of us as they possibly can.
Yeah, and it's funny that I remember you talking about how you used to, in your younger days, be in a ska band, and
Yes.
and John would know because we grew up together when I lived in Canada. I played in punk bands as a kid, and I used to act like, oh, I don't care how I look or whatever. But I spent so much time picking out, the right band t-shirt, the right height of socks, the right, sneakers, everything to make it look like I didn't care. And it's just, I don't think that people act like that, oh, I don't care about how I look, but you are thinking about every single aspect of how you look. It's just, you want to put that out there. I don't know.
Well, and
especially in the punk rock tribe, there's nobody who cares more about what they look like than like gutter punks. Yeah. Everything is so meticulous and so perfectly calibrated to give the middle finger to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But you can't say that that's not intentional, because they wouldn't accidentally show up in a Tommy Hilfiger pair of chinos or something from Ralph Lauren or anything else, because that's totally antithetical to their whole approach to life.
Yeah.
And they get that. We got that. I got that as a high school kid.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You think that you're, somehow, sticking it to the man or whatever because you're wearing a Newfound Glory T-shirt or whatever it was back in the day.
You just dated all of us.
Oh man, it's funny because this is on an off tangent, but recently for some reason I fell into this wormhole of my friend told me about all these punk rock guys that have podcasts that are basically all from like the late 90s, early 2000s, and they have all each other on the show. So it's very interesting. You could definitely fall down the wormhole on listening to those things. And then you claim that there's a very distinct difference between style and fashion. And when people hear, what does that mean? When people hear fashion and hear style, a lot of people think, oh, that's kind of the same world.
Yeah, it's one that I actually get I probably get a little bit more irritated than I should when people say that I write on fashion or I do a YouTube channel about fashion or anything. But for me, the big difference, and it actually comes back to kind of what you were talking about, especially Donovan, what you were saying about it's sad when people define themselves by their clothing as opposed to having their own internal character. Fashion is something that gives you external credibility and it projects it onto you inwardly, whereas style is taking something that you've already established inwardly and then you externally project that out into the world so that people around you can better understand who you are based on what you're wearing.
Yeah, that's.
But I would think that the kind of catch-22 with that scenario would be you're kind of anticipating what the person looking at you will get. Like you're trying to present yourself in a way that you're expecting them to receive you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think
and obviously you'll never be able to do it perfectly.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that is a good point, John. Well, what do you? I mean, your site is called Masculine Style. So, I mean, what defines masculine style? What do you think is masculine style? I mean, how can we be more masculine in our styles?
So I love this question because it comes down to more about the philosophy and the story you're trying to tell with your clothing than necessarily you need to wear this article of clothing or that color or this pattern. Because if you think about at any point in history across any culture, men have always communicated our masculinity through the clothing that we've worn. Mm-hmm. Even when you look at like the baby boomers and their rejection of suits in that culture, for them that was a way to communicate masculinity, was rejecting the man and doing all these other things. And so it's always been something that we've cared about. And it's just finding the universal stories that have always been told, the universal things that have always been communicated. I know that you guys are all familiar with Brett McKay from The Art of Manliness. I'm sure that you've probably heard some of his podcasts with Jack Donovan, who wrote The Way of Men.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we were just talking about
Donovan talks about, he's awesome. And his stuff is, I mean, it's certainly not for like the weak-willed or the weak-minded because he pulls no punches. Yeah. But I love that he takes an amoral approach to masculinity. He talks about the 4 tactical virtues, which are courage, strength, mastery, and honor. And if you think about it, you can tell those stories. You can indicate where you fit within those virtues through your clothing. You can tell whether or not you are a strong man or you have courage or that you're loyal to your tribe or that you're really, really good at something. A lot of that stuff is really subtly indicated through the clothing that we choose to wear.
In the last couple of years, I was like thinking, I'm a grown man. I'm about to be 30. What are some things that I can do that don't make me look like a kid? And that was like, I decided I'm not going to wear hoodies unless I'm working out, and I'm not going to wear running shoes out of the house unless I'm going to work out. Those are like 2 things that I thought in my head that like, that to me that makes me look like a teenager. I don't know. That's what I thought for me, and I felt like if I left the house that way, I don't feel like a man, is what I thought.
So what was the impetus for that? What made you decide that you didn't want to look like a kid anymore?
I don't know. I felt like I was just, it's time in life. Like I definitely feeling like I'm growing older. I'm married. I've got my own business, all this stuff. I'm like, I want people to see me as an adult, like, especially I've got clients and stuff. I don't want to think of me as like this kid. And I'm like, my style was never very, other than the punk rock days, was never really like childlike. But for me, I thought that those 2 things, I realized whenever I wear these things, I don't feel like a man for some reason. I know it's not the same for everybody. That and flat billed caps for some reason. That's just me. But I never wore flat billed caps. Are there, like, I know there's not a one size fits all for everyone, but are there some small ways or certain things that you could suggest that men can upgrade their style to kind of feel like they're progressing on to a more manly kind of masculine style?
Yeah, I think actually what you were talking about is such a good approach, because what it sounds to me like what you did is you took your style from being something that was just kind of a neutral. It wasn't necessarily working against you. It's kind of the equivalent of you were wearing deodorant. You weren't smelling awful. You were just kind of in the neutral territory. Yep. And now you started to wear cologne. You started to progress so that your style is a little bit more in that positive direction. But even the things that you kind of associate with childishness or non-professionalism are very much relative to what your own clients perceive, or the way that your own social circle, your own audience perceives those things. And so when I'm working with my own clients one-on-one or with my group classes, what I tell guys to do as they start to try to improve their style is, rather than getting rid of all your t-shirts and focusing on button-ups, or getting rid of flat billed caps and wearing fedoras or any of these other kind of easy things, because all of those are fraught with their own kind of downfalls, is pay attention to the men whom you aspire to be like, and see not only the way that they dress, but try and figure out why they dress the way that they do, and then take those underlying principles that they apply to their wardrobes. Albeit most guys who are successful do it subconsciously.
Yeah.
But take those same principles and then start applying those to yourself.
Okay.
Because you get guys, I mean, I get clients who they're out in the Bay Area and they work for a tech startup and they want to dress better. They want to be able to command more respect. They want to look more like they're not kids, like they've paid their dues and they've earned their stripes within that world. But a suit is not appropriate for these guys, not at all, because then they look like they're ex-tribe. They look like they're brand new in that world. They don't belong, or they're from the legal department or something else. Wearing a suit can hurt these guys in their credibility. It can hurt them in their mission. But if they can look at other guys within their business or within their industry who are dressing well and succeeding and start to emulate some of those things, then that's when they can really start to make some good progress. It's kind of like, I mean, I'm not ragging on your question, but I just want to give you some context
that's fine,
with it.
yeah.
So it's kind of like asking, well, Tanner, if I want to get into good shape, what do I have to do? And it's like, okay, well, do you want to get in good shape like a CrossFitter? Or do you want to get in good shape like a boxer or like a marathon runner or a swimmer? Because they all have very different bodies and they're all in great shape in very different ways. And so you have to know what the end goal is before you can start figuring out what the tactics are that will get you there. And that's where most guys fall short. Honestly, that's where most style bloggers and YouTubers fall short, is we just focus on suits and tactics, and that's it. And for a lot of guys, that's not even pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't see, like, there's not many situations where I would ever need to wear a suit. And I enjoy wearing suits. I enjoy dressing up when the occasion calls for it. But sometimes, I mean, like you said, you're talking about social fluency. It's almost like knowing your audience and where you're at, or even going to like an event or something and you want to look good. Maybe wearing a suit would be inappropriate in certain occasions.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like I was always told, like, going into interviews, especially in the entertainment industry, it's like know what you're interviewing for and dress appropriately, So in other words, if you're going in for an assistant job, don't wear a suit, don't overdress, dress like maybe, polo, chinos, keep it modest, I
always think of that scene in Step Brothers.
Oh yeah.
When they show up in tuxedos.
Hello, my lady. That was great.
And it's so obvious, but that you take that back 2 notches and the principle still applies the same way. And most guys don't get that. The gentleman cosplayers don't get it, that you're being just as bad. It's only 1 or 2 degrees less, but you're still on the wrong side of the spectrum.
It makes you look, I mean, it's a different sort of insecurity,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, John, I think you had a couple of style questions you wanted to ask in terms of,
Okay.
Yeah.
First and foremost, where did hipsters go wrong?
Philosophically or aesthetically? Because I could probably answer both of those.
That's a really broad question. That could take a whole other episode.
Right? Okay, I'll tell you.
Run with it as you will.
Okay, my problem with hipsters, and especially their aesthetic, is the big problem with the whole hipster ethos is it's a fear of sincerity. When you live in a postmodern world where everything has to be treated as ironic or tongue-in-cheek or meta or fourth wall breaking or something else, then sincerity and the simple idea of right versus wrong is something that's deserving of ridicule, or it's simple, or it's goody-goody, or whatever kind of criticism you want to level on it. And so a hipster can wear the most egregious thing and really put himself out there. And then if somebody criticizes him and says, "You look stupid," he says, "Oh yeah, I'm just being ironic."
Yeah.
And so
you don't
it's a
get
way,
it, man.
it's a way to, exactly. It's a way to be a coward, because you can just say, well, it's ironic. I don't have to actually stand up for anything or be sincere, because everything I do is postmodern, and their aesthetic reflects that as well. And so I see it as not only philosophical but aesthetic cowardice, where you don't actually put yourself out there. You can just it's my 4-year-old kids. My 4-year-old daughter did this today. She said something she wasn't supposed to say. We got on her case. She says, "I was just kidding." And it's like, no, you weren't. I know you weren't. And that doesn't count as a rule. And it's the same aesthetic equivalent for the stupid hipster who's just like, "Oh, you made fun of me. I'm just kidding." And no, you weren't, dude. You tried. And I would respect you more if you actually owned up to the fact that you tried and you failed, as opposed to, "I was kidding."
Well, I feel like we see that, like, working in the entertainment industry. I've seen that a lot in the arts, where there's something that's just kind of abstract and something I don't get. And I'm like, well, there's no story to it. And people go, well, that's not the point. You just didn't get it. And I was like, well, I mean, I think there are certain rules to storytelling. I mean, it's like, and then that's, oh, you don't get it, man. That's not what this thing's about. It's like, all right, I don't know. What do you have any other ones, John? I know you had some good ones we talked about earlier.
Skinny tie, fat tie, somewhere in between. It's always changing. What's the deal with that?
Status is the deal with that. Ultimately, trends are always driven by status. You've got guys within given tribes, whether that's like sartorial menswear with suiting or like the streetwear sub-tribe. And that's those are just, menswear cultures. You've got bigger and broader tribes beyond that. And clothing is always a way that we signal status within our given tribes, whether that's your military rank or something else. And you've got guys who are higher in the hierarchy and higher in status, and they're the ones who are setting the trend. And then guys who are kind of mid-tier who start to adopt it. And then once the guys who are low-tier adopt it, then it's no longer a way for the high-status guys to be able to distinguish themselves. So they have to change course and they have to go another direction. And so it's always going to be one big old cycle. And that's why now, if you pay attention to the guys who are really ahead of the curve in suiting, they're doing really full cuts. They're doing bigger ties, bigger lapels, because it's a way to move against the fact that you can go pick up a skinny suit and a skinny tie at Men's Warehouse, whereas 6 years ago you couldn't do that. So it's always status.
Well, is there? Okay. Oh, go ahead, John.
Do you think we'll ever get to the double tie fashion like in Back to the Future Part 2? That's what I'm holding out for.
I'm holding that and for a hoverboard that'll work on water, right?
I gotta get a piano tie. That's what I gotta bring back. Or the one that's shaped like the fish. But talking about in terms of trends, is there such thing as a timeless style? Does that even exist?
Nope.
No.
Sure doesn't. I mean, you can look at things that kind of are neutral or they aesthetically look good. I mean, you can look back at the example that's always used is somebody like Cary Grant or Fred Astaire. You can look at what those men wore in their prime, and I can still see that and appreciate the aesthetic value for what it is. But you better believe that if those men were in their prime in 2017, they wouldn't be wearing what they wore then, because again, it would be indicative of a lack of cultural fluency.
Yeah.
And then you take that out 150 years, and suits 150 years ago were not even remotely close to what they are now. And then you go back 500 years or 1,500 years, and the principles of masculinity in clothing or aesthetic communication and all these other things, that's timeless. But the actual application of it is so dependent on what other people see and what the cultural and philosophical and political influences in the world are, and religious underpinnings and all these other variables that you can't just say, a 3-button suit with a medium notch lapel and a 4-in-hand knot on a tie is always going to look good, because it's not.
Yeah.
Some guy back in the 1400s was calling tights timeless. It's like, guys, the Van Dyke and the tights, totally timeless. Never going to change.
Timeless. I'm not following these stupid trends. Look at these idiots.
Oh, man. I do. I have had to wear, as an actor, I've had to wear tights a few times in my day. And sometimes I can definitely see the benefit of wearing them underneath clothes, and especially in the winter.
Oh, sure. Long underwear wise, yeah.
Talking about function over style. Well, I was going to say function over fashion, but I didn't want to offend our guest here. Function over style.
That's it. I'm done. Hang it up.
What about cargo shorts? Is that ever appropriate?
Man, I can't think of a single place aesthetically where that would be appropriate. Okay. I can maybe think of a few situations where it would have been functionally appropriate from maybe a military perspective.
Yeah.
But
right.
Unless you're in that particular location and in that environment, you can do so much better than that.
Well, that's what we were talking about this before we came on, actually, how shorts, used to be called short pants. They were basically meant for kids. And then, I think it was probably circa, turn of the century, World War II, where the British started wearing them in desert combat and stuff. So, I mean, it was never really like a thing to wear shorts before. Now I think it's like, if you're barbecuing or something and you want to wear some khaki shorts, like, go ahead. But
Oh yeah, I'll wear shorts in the summer. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
But cargo shorts. Unless it's 1997 and you're trying to fall into TRL, it's not appropriate to wear cargo shorts.
Yeah. At one point, I wore cargo shorts once in the last decade, and it's when I had to go shoot in Mexico. I had this shoot that was out in the middle of nowhere, and I had to keep camera lenses and equipment and stuff. But I knew that it wasn't aesthetic.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's exactly when you should wear them.
Plus, you're outside of civilization at that point.
Yeah,
so,
Plus, you're outside of civilization.
You have to go all the way to Mexico to make it appropriate.
And justify the cargo space in each pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
You get a lot of complaints in Spanish.
John, did you have any more questions?
Who's killing it? Who's not out there in the people that we see?
Are there any prime examples of somebody who's
That's it. The famous people.
That's such a good question, especially because so many of them are not necessarily well dressed on their own. They go to award shows and they're dressed by designers and stylists. Guys who I really think are doing really well. Kanye West is always super interesting, especially because he's so high status within his own tribe that that man could literally pull off like the derelict from Zoolander, and people would be lining up to buy that, just no problem whatsoever. And so even to just understand like the whole philosophy of style and how that works, Kanye is such a good example. Ryan Reynolds, actually, whenever he does a GQ shoot or you see him do stuff, he does really, really well. I think I'm a little bit more partial to that because I'm similar to his age and a father, and not necessarily wanting to be like a schlub of a father, but wanting to still look like you've got it together. And he does a really good job with that. Those are the two guys who really kind of come to mind. But it's just paying attention to guys who care about this stuff and use it to communicate other things other than I peaked in college, and I still wish that I were back in that point in my life.
Yeah. Well, my style doesn't necessarily reflect that, but my Spotify playlist does. So maybe that's a lesson for another episode. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Tanner, for coming on. Where can people find you? I know you have a website where you help men could go on there and fill out a survey to kind of help figure out what their style is. Tell us a little bit about that before we close.
Yeah, absolutely. So going deeper into this whole idea of knowing the direction in which you want to head, as I've studied style over the years and worked with a bunch of clients, what I've found is that most men fall within one of three different aesthetic archetypes or style archetypes, and it's based primarily on how you interact with the world. And so those are rugged, refined, and rakish. And based on whether or not you kind of primarily interact with the world through physical means, and you're a blue collar worker, you get dirty, or you like to work with your hands, or you're a guy who likes to break the rules and you're a rebel and an outcast, or if you're a guy who kind of likes to climb the ladder, you like to follow rules and you want to be able to be financially and socially influential, those all kind of fall within those three different archetypes. And if you know where you fit within one of those, then you can start heading in that direction, because a rugged guy isn't going to benefit from a suit, nor is a guy who's a rake, because it's going to look too conformist and he wants to break the rules a little bit more. And so on my site, if you go to masculine-style.com, it'll take you to, there'll be a few different places there where you can go in and take a quiz. It's like 7 or 8 questions long, and then based on the answers you put into the quiz, it's going to tell you which of those 3 archetypes is your primary one and get you pointed in the right direction, so you start knowing how you should actually start dressing to improve your life.
All right, perfect. Well, we'll have to get on there and figure out where I fit in.
Yeah, I want to hear what you guys got.
Yeah. We'll tweet we'll tweet it when the episode goes up, what we got from our quiz. Well, thanks again, and people can find you on Twitter, Facebook.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of those. It's just at Tanner Guzy, and that's Guzy with 1 Z. And the site itself is masculine-style.com. So basically anything related to masculine style or Tanner Guzy, all of that's relatively unique. So you look up something with those and it'll be tied to me.
All right. Awesome. Thanks again, man.
Great.
And we'll have to have you on again as we explore different topics.
I would love it. Thanks for the great conversation, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanner.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Well, that was I enjoyed that interview with Tanner. We got to have him back. I thought he brings definitely brings a fresh look to the idea of style, and I feel like he's in a market that isn't filled. You know, there are men looking to get style advice by people they can relate to, not someone that's in the stuffed suit. Or somebody that comes off as a stuffed suit, or not somebody that's, you know, too outlandish or too flamboyant to relate to.
It's more of a philosophy for him, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a good way of looking at it, because, you know, when you turn it into an ideology or a philosophy, it's much more timeless.
So are we going to have to do some before and after photos of us going through his program?
That would that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, I always look good, so
I really love pants shopping. You know,
at the pants
I have to bring someone along, you know, with the 2-finger jiggle along the belt area to make sure they're fitting properly.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I think the dressing room is so overrated. Sometimes I just try them on right there in the in the middle of everything. I just
I do that if I'm wearing an undershirt. I'll put something on over my undershirt.
No, I'm talking about the lower half. And I don't, I like to go commando every once in a while. So
that should be a hidden camera thing we'll do for our Instagram. Speaking of that could be a nice little perk for our Patreon page. So if that's something you'd like to see, send us a message and let us know what kind of perks you'd like to see. That could be one of them. Yeah, and as usual, you can follow us on the social media. And thank you again for listening. All our links are always in the show notes. And we hope you guys have a great week. And we'll see you next week. And, I mean, that's it. I don't have anything else to add. Do you guys have anything else to add?
Why are we still here?
Why are we still here? Why are you still here?
The Ferris Bueller. Why are you still here?
All right, Portman, play us out.
We'll do it live!
Damn thing sucks!
This has been the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do. Hey!